Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and former South Carolina Governor. Ambassador, it's great to have you here.
It's so great to be in studio.
Yes, it's great. It feels like you can really have a really good conversation. You look at what is happening in Afghanistan. You look back at where former President Trump stood on this. He wanted troops out of there by May. He received military guidance to the contrary, and so he took different steps. Do you believe that this withdrawal will lead to a rise of the Taliban, as we are already seeing that?
One issue is the withdrawal. The other issue is how it was done. The idea that the base left in the dark of night and just suddenly disappeared was a terrible sign for our enemies and for our allies. And what we want is, we don't want thousands of people on the ground in Afghanistan, but we need a presence, an intelligence presence. In Syria we had a presence, not a lot of people, but Russia and Iran didn't mess with us. They let us know what was going on all the time because they knew we were watching. You have now taken every ounce of our eyes and ears off what's happening. Taliban's taken over 85%. And what that now means is we now have to be careful at home because we don't know what the terrorists are doing abroad.
So tell me what exactly that means, while also putting in the context that your husband served in Afghanistan 2013, 11-month stay there. You've talked about the importance of bringing those interpreters that help our troops to safety. But the Pentagon now is warning that there is a concerning rise in the Taliban. You mentioned the 85% territory. The Taliban now says it has. There's no way to certainly verify that. But the Pentagon says they're concerned. Listen.
We're certainly watching with deep concern, Chris, the deteriorating security situation and the violence, which is, of course, way too high, and the advances and the momentum that the Taliban seems to have right now. I mean, we're not unmindful of that, Chris. We're watching it and monitoring it.
Can you picture a circumstance that may arise where the need to send troops back could happen?
Well, I think he's put himself in a box, because here you have, I don't expect the government to last 6 months with the Taliban moving in this direction. You're going to have China suddenly starting to move in a big way in Afghanistan because they see the opportunity. So now sending them back will be, it would be a delay. It won't mean anything. It will cause more issues going back in than not. This could have been done if there was strategy in place. You keep an intelligence presence on the ground. You let them know that you're sending certain troops home, but they still know you're there. We've basically checked out. And the way we left everything checked out, one, it's an insult to anyone who's ever served in Afghanistan. It's an insult to anyone who's ever died in Afghanistan. Don't just open the door and run. Yeah. Acknowledge the last 20 years meant something for us personally and for the world abroad, and do it the right way. This was just almost running scared. It's
all those
odd.
Sacrifices made. To Cuba now, and the ongoing protests that we are seeing there, people taking to the streets, waving the American flag, chanting the word freedom. There are members of Congress that today still tout the very socialist policies that have led to the economic decline and suffering in that country. You reference back to Bernie Sanders, who seems silent on the suffering that is happening and the protests that are happening in the streets right now. Silent after saying things like this, heaping praise on the Castro regime. This is 2020. Listen.
We're very opposed to the authoritarian nature of Cuba. But it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing, even though Fidel Castro did it?
How much longer can members of Congress, like AOC and others, be silent as this happens to those people not being able to access medicine, not being able to get the food that they need?
Democrats have been doing this for a while. So the year before I became UN ambassador, there is a resolution that happens every year that basically condemns the United States for the situation in Cuba. Think about that. Condemns the United States for the situation in Cuba. The year before I came in, the Obama administration abstained when the world condemned us. Mm-hmm. So I came back in and I gave a speech that said, let's be very clear what the reasoning is for the suffering of the people of Cuba. It is because of communism, without question. It's because of corruption. It's because of the fact that any money that goes into Cuba goes to the regime and doesn't go to the people. These people are desperate for freedom. They're crying out for freedom, knowing they're going in harm's way. They see that they're starting to use tear gas and other things to get aggressive with these protesters, but they're also cutting off the internet. When they're crying out for freedom, they're cutting off the internet so that no one else can see this. Cuba has never taken responsibility for what has happened, and America needs to learn this lesson. When you start getting money that government's doling out, they eventually own you. And when they own you, people suffer. That's what we don't want. We're seeing mission creep of socialism from Bernie and the squad saying, let's give money out by stimuluses and everything else. We will pay a huge price in our freedom if we allow this to continue.
Marco Rubio just tweeted out that you can't even get medical health care right now. If you're a protester injured in the streets there, they are refusing entry to the hospitals.
One point on that, you know, they're talking about that this wouldn't happen if U.S. didn't have sanctions. Medical care and equipment and medicines are all exempt from that. We continue to send humanitarian aid to Cuba.
Important point to make, considering Cuba's foreign minister just said that if Biden wants to help Cuba, they should lift those U.S. sanctions, obviously, that were put on under the Trump administration. You feel compelled to write about something here at home that we are seeing in America's schools. A lot of people talking about it. We cover it here on the Fox News channel, critical race theory. You put out a tweet. You also wrote about it. You said critical race theory is going to hold back generations of young people. You referenced your parents, immigrants from India, always taught us, you write, to focus on what brings us together, not sets us apart. America should be united around shared values, not divided by different shades of color. Why do you believe this curriculum will hold back generations of young people in this country?
I mean, think about a 5-year-old that starts kindergarten and they don't know anything about color. If she's white, you're telling her she's bad. If she's brown or black, you're telling her she'll never be enough and she'll always be a victim. That is harmful for the very well-being of our children. I mean, I remember getting teased on the playground when I was younger in rural South Carolina. And my mom would say, your job is to show them how you're similar, not how you're different. We don't need to go and do what's happening on college campuses now to our children in kindergarten. Every governor in the country needs to ban funding for critical race theory. Governors can decide this. They decide which money they take from the Department of Education. Don't take this money. This will have effects that will go long-lasting into our kids. They don't need to be judged from the second they walk into school. They don't need to be told which label they are when they walk into the school. We need to treat kids as the opportunities they're going to be to fix America, not break them before they start.
All right, I'd love to talk to you about that more, but we've got the CPAC over the weekend. We had the straw poll last night. I was dying to ask you about it. Donald Trump winning that straw poll by a long shot, 70%. Ron DeSantis garnering, I believe it was 21% of that, a far second place behind. I ask you every time, are you running in 2024? Is the answer different today, Nikki Haley? Because nobody else in that straw poll managed to go above 1%.
Well, I think President Trump's voice is going to be needed for a long time. He's a valuable voice for our party. I think he's going to continue to lead on multiple levels. I don't think I have to make a decision until 2023. If the president ran, I would never run against him. I'm loyal. I support him. I always have. He's a friend. But, you know, I think right now we have to understand that 2024 won't matter if we don't win 2022. House, Senate, governor's races have never been more important than they are right now. We need to make sure we're rallying. We need to make sure that we win these races. The left has swung the pendulum so far left. We need to take the opportunities in hard and easy races to go and make sure we take the House and the Senate back.
I'm sure you hear it. A lot of people want to see you run.
You know, I hear that, but I think it's too early. You know, I think if you look at the situation, a lot can change in a year. I think we need to keep our eye on the ball. And our eyes need to be on what do we do to stop the bleeding of Biden. And I'll tell you, every day that Biden and Kamala are in office is another day that Republicans come together. Elections have consequences. We need to remember this.
What do you believe will be the top issue? I've got to leave it there. But do you believe crime? What do you believe will be the top message for Republicans, as you just referenced, going into 2022?
Democrats want to defund the police. They want to open the borders. They want to keep your kids out of school, and they're choosing teachers' unions over them. And that's not what America wants. That's not what moms want. That's not what families want.
Ambassador Haley, great to have you here.
This has been fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's great. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, John.